Hey everybody, it's Josh Alexander with Orange County Housing Market News, and this is your September 2020 Orange County Housing Market Update, so let's get into it. Okay everybody, so after 2 weeks with no new episodes, I'm finally back. So I'm sure all of you have been wondering and have nothing else on your mind except, hey, why has Josh not released any new episodes in the last 2 weeks? Well, I'm here to put your mind at ease. Let me explain. 2 weeks ago, we also decided after a lot of deliberation to send our son back to preschool in person. And wouldn't you know it, a few days later, he came back home sick. So one of the other side effects of COVID that we found out the hard way is, hey, after 7 months of your immune system not having to do anything at all, when you get a cold, you get it pretty bad. So over the last 2 weeks, we've been recovering 2 COVID tests and a bunch of sleep later. We're all healthy again, so we're ready to start getting back at it. So let's go ahead and start talking about the housing market. So today, I'm going to cover a few things. What's been happening this last month in September for the housing market, what that means for buyers and sellers, and at the end, we're also going to be covering something that I'm getting more and more questions about every day now, is how is the election going to be impacting the housing market? So let's get into it and start first by talking about the general housing market and what we've been seeing over the last month. Okay, so the fall housing market is in full swing now. So kids are back in school, whether it's either virtually or in person or half and half or 100 different ways right now. It kind of seems impossible to keep track of what's going on. But the bottom line is kids are back in school, which traditionally during this time of year, during September, you start to see the housing market start to decline in both supply and demand. However, this year, we're not really seeing a rapid decline, which we usually see. We're just seeing a slight decrease. So for instance, if you check out supply right here, you can see that yes, we have gone down a little bit, but we've only gone down about 1% over the last couple weeks. So it's really not really even noticeable in terms of the supply difference. Now, if you check out demand up here, it's the same thing. Demand peaked a few weeks ago, and it's starting to come down about 3% over the last couple weeks, but it's really not coming down in any significant way to really impact the market. So the bottom line is we're still pretty much in the same market we were in just a few weeks ago. So if you put your house on the market at the beginning of this month compared to right now, you're really not going to see a significant difference in demand. And if you're trying to purchase a home at the beginning of this month compared to right now, again, you're not going to see a significant difference in terms of how many offers are going on each home, how many multiple offer situations are going to be in. The housing market is extremely hot right now. We're still in a seller's market, the hottest seller's market. I've been saying this forever, but the hottest seller's market that we've been in over 8 years right now. And that really is not going to change anytime soon because interest rates are still hovering right below 3% right now. And demand is sky high even as we go into these fall months. So what does that mean? It means that over the next couple weeks, we are going to continue to start seeing a decline, but I don't expect to see any significant decrease over the next couple weeks because, again, our inventory is starting out so low right now, it just really can't drop much. And unless interest rates shoot up by 1% or more, the demand's going to be there. People are trying to take advantage of the lowest interest rates ever. So the fundamentals of the housing market are really not going to be changing enough to be able to have any significant difference from now to where we might be in a few weeks from now. And in terms of nationally, one of the big things I'm finding interesting is now a lot of experts are predicting we're going to have more home sales this year in the middle of a pandemic than we did last year in 2019. So that really just shows you how much of an increase in demand we've had because we've had to make up all those home sales when we first went into the shutdown in March. We've had to make up all those home sales and we've done that. And it looks like now we're projected to have even more than 2019 by 1% or 2% by the end of the year. So I thought that was kind of a crazy statistic to look at. And the trend right now is that we're going to be in a hot seller's market and finish out the year very strong in real estate, even as the market starts to slow down a little bit as we get closer and closer to the holidays. Okay, so buyers, what does this market mean for you? So today I want to do something a little bit different. I want to really have you understand the emotional side about purchasing a home, because when we're in such a hot seller's market, you really need to understand both, yes, the financial side, but also the emotional side of being in such a competitive market. So today I'm going to walk you through a completely different scenario that has nothing to do with real estate, but then tie it back in together, and hopefully that will give you a better understanding of what to expect when you're going out looking for homes in such a hot seller's market. So let's travel back in time together to your first year of high school. So leading up to high school, you're a hopeless romantic. The only thing you've ever wanted was to go on a date and be in a relationship with the girl, but it hasn't happened yet. So you're walking down the halls on your first day of high school. You look up, you make eye contact with this beautiful girl, and you're thinking, hey, maybe this is the one. But you're also noticing at the same time, there's a lot of other people around the area that are also interested in this girl. So you say, you know what, today's the day. You walk up to her and you ask her out before anybody else does. And to your surprise, she says, yes, let's get together tonight. So you go on a date, and the date starts off well, besides the fact that for some reason she's asking for your financial statements right away. But besides that, you go to the movies, you eat dinner, you have a great time, everything ends really well. You go back to your house and you're saying, hey, what is this feeling I have? Is this love? Is this what this is? You go to sleep and you start dreaming about your life together. So getting married to this girl, going and having kids with this girl, growing old together. You wake up in the morning, you open your phone, you're seeing Facebook has a notification, so you open it up, you look at it, and it's the girl you went on a date with, and it says she's in a relationship. So you're getting all excited, you're saying, hey, this is going farther and faster than I thought it would, this is awesome. But then you look farther, and you look at the post, and it actually says that she's in a relationship with somebody else, and your soul is crushed. So this is kind of what happens to first-time home buyers or someone that hasn't purchased in a while when you're in such a hot seller's market right now. So it's very similar. You're going through the process, you're purchasing a home, so you're walking through the property, you're falling in love, you're imagining your couch over there, your family growing old over here, and you're really starting to have an emotional attachment to the house. You go home, talk to your agent, you start putting in an offer, a very competitive offer, maybe even above asking price. Everything looks very good on the offer. You send it in, you get your hopes up, but then the next day your agent calls you and says, hey, I'm sorry to tell you, another buyer came in and offered $20,000 more than you did, and the seller took that offer instead. That's the same type of soul-crushing experience you can have if you're not expecting it and you don't know what the current market is about. So yes, sometimes buyers do get that first home they put an offer on. It does happen, but statistically, because it's such a hot seller's market right now, there's a good chance you're going to have to put offers on 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 properties before you find the right one that you can get into escrow with. So you want to be prepared emotionally for the roller coaster that's going to take place when you're purchasing homes, because if you're not, as soon as you get that first rejection, or maybe that second rejection, you're saying, hey, this isn't worth it. I don't want to do this anymore. It's not worth it. I'm disappointed. And then you drop out of the market. So that's something that you don't really want to do right now, because interest rates are low, going back to the financial side of it. And you really are doing yourself a disservice if you can afford a home right now and the interest rates are so low. You really want to continue going. So how do you avoid this disappointment? Well, there's 3 ways of doing it. So number 1, you want to work with an agent that is going to give you a realistic expectation of what to expect when you're placing offers in this extremely hot seller's market. So kind of like I did above, you need to be able to have not only your financial, but also your emotional expectations set before you go into the process. Because if you don't, there's a good chance you're going to burn out really quickly and stop the house hunting process and not want to continue going. So the second is that during the process of placing an offer, you want to make sure you're going through the entire contract, not just the purchase price, but the entire contract, and finding ways to write it in a way that's going to make the seller want to accept it. There's a lot of things in the contract that have nothing to do with the price, which I've said this before and talked about this many times, but they have nothing to do with price that can make or break the contract based on the seller. So you really just want to make sure that you're placing your strongest offer up front, because right now, because it is so competitive, what I'm starting to see more and more of is because sellers are getting so many offers, that first round of offers, they get overwhelmed. And instead of wanting to say, okay, well, let's go ahead and counter offer these 10 people or these 3 people, they look at the offers and say, hey, which is going to be the best offer for me? And they accept it. So the worst thing to happen as a buyer is to have a case of the what if. So, hey, I was willing to go up $5,000. I just didn't want to at the time. What if I did go up $5,000? Would I have got the house? Those are the type of situations you really want to try to avoid. And right now, you just want to make sure that you're placing your best foot forward and placing the most competitive offer up front. And from my experience, that's giving you the best shot of getting into the house and having that seller respond in a positive way. And then the third thing is, again, we talked about it a little bit, but you do have to remember the interest rates are extremely low. So know in the back of your head as you're going through this process, if you are able to find a house, and when you're able to find a house, you're going to be able to secure the lowest interest rates we've ever seen for a loan for a mortgage right now, which means you're going to be saving thousands and thousands of dollars over the life of your loan and be able to put yourself in a much better financial position. And right now, there's a good chance you can afford a home that's a much higher price than even at the beginning of the year. So you have to keep that in mind as you're going through the process of placing these offers and trying to get them accepted. So I hope that kind of gives you a better understanding of both the financial and the emotional side of purchasing a house, because they're both extremely important. Buying a home is a very emotional process. Yes, it's one of the most expensive things you'll ever do and the biggest decision you'll make, one of the biggest decisions you'll make in your entire life. So you need to be able to have that emotional expectation set so you know what to expect, so you can continue until you find the right home that's going to fit for you and your family. Okay, so sellers, what does this market mean for you? Just take your house, throw it on the market, and place it whatever price you want to, and a buyer will pay it, right? Well, not so fast. So right now, you still have to be very strategic and very deliberate about what you price your home at, because buyers are smart enough to know that if you overprice your home significantly, it's not worth that price and they won't pay that price. So you still have to be able to look at the most recent comparable sales of the house. Yes, you can place it on the high end or slightly above the last comparable sale because it is a seller's market right now. But if you're placing it $40,000, $50,000 above the last comparable sale, buyers are smart enough to know that that's overpriced and they're not going to pay for it, and it's going to sit on the market. And especially right now, which I'll explain in a little bit when we talk about the election, but especially right now, you do not want to be overpricing your home, because if it's sitting on the market, you're going to start seeing decreased activity, and eventually you're going to end up selling it for lower than what you could have sold it for if you just placed it on the market at the correct price to begin with. So sellers, yes, it's looking like it's going to be a seller's market for the next 6 months to a year, but you still need to be cautious about what you're putting your home on the market for, because if you don't do it correctly, you're going to be having your home sit on the market and end up with a lower price than you should have. Okay, so finally, let's go ahead and talk about the election and how that might impact the housing market. So I'm going to pull up a few slides from a company called Keeping Current Matters that kind of gives you some of the data points to hopefully give you a better understanding of what to expect during an election year, as well as the couple months and even year moving forward after that. So I'm going to pull up the slides. If you're listening to this through podcast form, I'll go ahead and explain it so you can understand what's going on. But the first slide I want to bring up, this really shows home sales between the months of October and November. So in a typical year, you usually see about a 10% decrease in home sales from October to November, which again, we've talked about, that's the fall market. So as we get closer and closer to the holiday season, Thanksgiving, Christmas, you start to see a more significant decrease. However, during election years, during the month between October and November, you see about a 5% bump, so a 15% decrease in the amount of homes sold because of an election year. So that is something to note. However, the other point I want to bring up, and I want to read this quote to you, and this is from Ali Wolf, the chief economist of Maya Research. History suggests that's a slowdown in large concentration in the month of November. In fact, the year after the presidential election is the best of the 4-year cycle. This suggests that demand for new housing is not lost because of the election uncertainty. Rather, it gets pushed out to the following year as long as the economy stays on track, which with COVID, the economy staying on track is always a big question mark, but in general, it seems to be heading the right direction right now. So she's basically saying that right now, the demand, yes, it will slow down the month of November, However, so this kind of goes back to the sellers who I was talking about, that if you don't price your home correctly right now, as we get towards the end of October, we're going to start seeing a pretty significant slowdown for a period of time. So if you don't price your home correctly, there's a good chance you're going to have a harder and harder time selling it as the rest of the year goes on, and you might have to wait till next year before you start getting that interest back up again, depending on the price range. So the other quote I did want to bring up, and this is from a home building report, is that this may indicate that potential home buyers may become more cautious in the face of national election uncertainty. The caution is temporary and ultimately results in deferred sales as the economy, jobs, interest rates, and the consumer confidence all have far more meaningful roles in the home purchase decision than a presidential election result in the months that follow. So this really ties back to the presidential election will have a little bit of impact, but what has more of an impact is what the current economy doing, what is the current economy doing right now, how does the housing market look right now, and what the consumer confidence is. So the last slide I want to go over for you is this is the consumer confidence survey that was done, and ever since 2016, which is kind of be expected, typically, Republicans are going to have a higher confidence in the economy than Democrats. That's because we have a Republican president right now. So right now, typically, Republicans are more willing to go out and purchase houses because they think the economy is doing better. Now, let's say we go through and a Democrat wins the White House. Now that role is going to reverse. So the Democrats are now going to feel a little bit more confidence in the economy. So places that are in high concentrations of Democrats might see an increase in home sales. Now, in Orange County, really, the Republicans and Democrats are very similar. So there's not a big difference in the amount of registered Republicans and Democrats. Right now, I think since 2019, Democrats slightly outweigh the amount of Republicans, but for all intents and purposes, they're about the same. So no matter who gets elected, really, if you take one down, the other one goes back up, it's going to end up being about the same in terms of consumer confidence in Orange County. So I really don't see the consumer confidence having a significant impact on future home sales in the Orange County area. Okay, so if consumer confidence is going to remain relatively the same, whether a Democrat or a Republican wins in Orange County, and the housing market has very strong fundamentals with low supply, high demand, and low interest rate, what is this ultimately going to lead to over the next year in terms of home appreciation? So the last graph I want to show you today, this is basically what some of the major companies out there, for instance, Zillow, National Association of Realtors, Fannie Mae, MBA, CoreLogic, what they're predicting based on their models of what the appreciation is going to be. And so CoreLogic, which has the lowest appreciation, is predicting a 0.6 appreciation, and then it goes all the way up to almost 6% appreciation over the next 12 months. So either way, all these major companies are predicting that home prices will continue to rise next year, and that's something that you really want to keep in mind as both a buyer and a seller. So if you're a buyer, you need to understand that the market fundamentals right now are indicating we are going to be seeing that appreciation happen month after month after month. So the longer you wait to get into a home, the more homes are going to appreciate, and you're eventually going to start getting priced out of some of those higher end homes that right now you could afford, but you might not be able to afford if they go up a few thousand or $10,000. For sellers, like we talked about before, yes, the market looks like it's going to be going in your favor for the next couple months, 6 to 12 months, but you need to make sure that you're pricing your home correctly, because that has everything to do with how quick it sells, how many offers it gets, and ultimately getting yourself the best offer at the highest price and closing it as quick as possible. So other than that, that's all the information I have for you today. I'll be back again in the middle of October for another monthly update. Until then, please stay healthy, stay happy, and I'll see you next time. Bye. If you found this podcast useful, please hit subscribe and leave a review below. I'd really appreciate it. And if you have any family or friends that want some more information about buying or selling a home, or just want to stay updated on the Orange County housing market, please share it with them. It'd mean the world to me. Thanks.